Hello, welcome to Secure the Continent and News Central Television. I am Gbenga Aborowa. This is the program where we bring you up to speed with the security situation on the African continent. But before we delve into today's topic of discussion, let me first bring you the major security headlines across Africa. The United States accuses South Africa of supplying arms to Russia. In West Africa, Guinea police deny killing 7 in protest. And 1 dead, 30 wounded in Senegalese unrest. And also in West Africa, Malian army foreign fighters executed 500 people in 2022. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back after this short timeout. The Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, has approved the deployment of a regional force to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The SADC will join other troops deployed under multilateral and bilateral arrangements in the war-torn region to finally restore peace and security in the area that has been plagued by insecurity for quite some time now. On the program today, we will be discussing expectations for the deployed troops and how the step will help to tackle the security crisis in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. But before we delve into the conversation proper, we have a background of the situation for you in this intro package.
South African Development Community, SADC, has sent troops to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to disrupt the rampage of the M23 rebels. The rebel group has sent more than 750,000 people out of their homes as the Eastern DRC continues to witness an enduring problem. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has refused entreaties in M23's bid to reach a political solution to the issue. While DR Congo continues to suffer from an extended period of the rebel group's devilry, it has also accused Rwanda of playing a role in its security problems. Despite several attempts to broker peace between the warring parties, the citizens are still the greatest victims in a story that has overstayed its welcome. The intervention of the SADC is expected to give a new sense of direction to the country's pursuit of triumph against its long-term enemy. DR Congo is a strategic security presence in the Central African sub-region, and its greatness is on the other end of its security challenges.
Now, joining me tonight on the program to discuss the deployment of SADC troops to the DRC, I have joining me from the Republic of South Africa, Patrick Kadima is a legal analyst joining us live from Johannesburg in South Africa. I also have Nixon Katembo, an analyst of the Great Lakes in East Africa, joining also from Johannesburg. And we're expecting Kambale Musavuli, an analyst for the Center for Research in Congo, Kinshasa. He will be joining us live from Beijing in China. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I'd like to start with Patrick. Patrick, what are the main objectives of the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, in deploying troops to the Democratic Republic of Congo? What specific strategies and tactics will SADC forces employ to combat the armed groups in the Eastern DRC and restore peace in the region?
Thank you very much, and good evening to you and your viewers. So, first of all, I just want to say that here we see the SADC, extraordinary summit happening in Namibia. And one of the notable things that one discovers is that there was a lack of head of states from certain countries, who were not present for this critical summit that was due to discuss the issues that are happening in the region, including the issue in the DRC. So now you have certain heads of state who were not there, were traveled for the coronation of the king in England, whilst leaving important issues in the region and discussions that, I think needed them to be there, and I'm not saying that heads of state cannot travel for certain reasons, They need to, they can send representatives, either ambassadors, vice presidents, and so on and so forth. But there are certain critical summits that warrants that the head of state themselves are available, for debate and so on and so forth. Now here we have SADC that decides that no, we are going to send troops to the Democratic Republic of Congo to try to quell the M23, that has been causing havoc in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. But then again, you find that this SADC has been known as a regional bloc that has been, has not been, so, how can I put it, so eager to send military intervention into its member states and so on and so forth. But here we have a decision that has been taken, and now it causes an issue because now you have the East African community that the Democratic Republic of Congo is part of, and now there's going to be a situation where there needs to be a harmonization of both peacekeeping troops that are there, to be able to draw up a strategy. And I think the last time we discussed when the East African community had decided to send troops to the Congo, I want that it is still early and they had taken a quick decision to go into the Democratic Republic of Congo without strategy, proper planning, and so on and so forth. And we have a president now here, Tshisekedi, who says, no, you know what, I'm going to ask my other regional members in the Southern African Development Community to come and assist me, because probably he has mistrust about East African community intervention. He does not trust certain issues and feels that it's now time that he seeks help from another regional bloc, which causes tension between the two regional blocs, obviously.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So, Nixon, I'd like to come to you, Nixon, in Johannesburg. Nixon, we have a situation where the president, as Patrick did say, that he felt the deployment of EAC troops was too early. And now we see President Felix Tshisekedi just inviting people from everywhere. Is it that they love the Congo so much that they will put in so much resources and manpower and also equipment and finances to come help quell the situation in the eastern DRC? And how is the newly deployed East African forces faring in the DRC? Their mission is to mount operations against the M23 rebels if the rebels don't withdraw from occupied territory and cease attacks. Have they made any significant difference in the fight against M23 rebels? And do you think this invitation to SADC troops is as a result of the failings of the EAC troops in the DRC, or they're meant to complement each other and work towards achieving the same goal? Nixon, can you kindly unmute your device, please?
Well, I don't know if it's me there, but my device is...
Okay, I can hear you clearly. Go ahead, please.
Well, let me first we'll put things into perspective. That the DRC is a member of SADC, and under Clause 15 of the SADC treaties, the SADC member have the responsibility to intervene anywhere in any of the member states if so happen that the member state is facing a security challenge. That is number one. So does the East African community as well, of which the DRC is a member. However, the difference between the two regional blocs is that one have a member state who have actively participated in the destabilization of the DRC, and including giving arms to armed groups, such as of the latest case being the M23, of which we know for the fact that they are not a ragtag army, according to the United Nations representative in a DRC, Bintu Keita, saying that these are conventional army, and we have known from the numerous report of the United Nations that these are Rwandan soldiers operating under the guise of the M23 there. So that is one aspect. We know Uganda has been participating in the destabilization of the DRC.
Hello, Nixon Katembo. Are you there? I believe we lost Nixon momentarily. We'll try and reconnect with him. Let me bring in Kambale in China, Beijing, China. Thank you very much, Kambale, for honoring our invitation. Now, we've seen that there's been pockets of protest against MONUSCO, one of the largest and most expensive peacekeeping operations in the world, with more than 16,000 uniformed personnel. We've also seen that not a lot of Congolese are happy with the presence of the East African community troops in Eastern DRC. Some are even asking questions that look, M23 is still gaining grounds. Are you guys here for tourism? And now there's news about the deployment of a SADC standby force. Can you please provide insights into the role and responsibilities of what this SADC standby force will be doing in supporting the DRC? And would you see any collaboration with forces, East African community forces, and also MONUSCO?
It's important to note that the protest against the MONUSCO forces is not the first time it has happened. This has happened many times in the past decade. I could even say arguably the past 2 decades, whenever the UN forces have arrived, they've been unable to stop the conflict. The people have usually taken it to the street to denounce the inadequacy of the UN forces. The UN force has the biggest, the strongest mandate that it can have. It has Chapter 7. Chapter 7 means that the UN forces can engage and enforce peace in DRC, engage with the rebels with a brute force to be able to stop them from their advance.
So they can carry out offensive operations, if I hear you clearly. The chapter 7 means that the United Nations troops can carry out offensive operations.
Indeed.
Okay.
And they have not been able to do that. I mean, the UN Secretary General Guterres, a few months back, stated on France 24, a French TV station, that the UN forces do not have the capacity, the military power to stop the M23. I mean, imagine after being in the Congo for over a decade, that the UN Secretary General is going to make that statement. But the same thing also has happened with the EAC forces, right? The Congolese people have demonstrated against the EAC combat forces in DRC. Why did they demonstrate, hold protests against them? They held protests because of the same issue. The EAC forces are not enforcing peace, are not going after the M23, and are actually creating a buffer zone which has allowed the M23 to gain more ground until there were ceasefires where they retreated. So the people also have demonstrated, have organized protests against the EAC forces. Now we are talking about SADC. The SADC forces are coming into DRC. Is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? I will always come to the position of Patrick Hammer, a former UN commander of the MONUSCO force. He said that the conflict in the Congo is a political problem. You can put military pressure, but that will not resolve the problem. What is the political problem? We have 2 of Congo's neighbors, Rwanda and Uganda, who have invaded the Congo twice, in 1996 and 1998, and up until today, they continue to provide support to rebel groups destabilizing the DRC. SADC, a decade ago, in 2012, the SADC forces came to the DRC through political pressure and also military force. The M23 were defeated by the SADC forces and a coalition of Congolese army and others. A decade later, we are talking about the same thing. SADC is going to come to provide support. But if we're not holding Rwanda and Uganda accountable, we will have another force on the ground trying to bring about peace, and it will not actually hold. But we do know that SADC will be much more enforcing of the situation. In 2002, the SADC nations were responsible for bringing together the rebel forces into a peace dialogue, not through international pressure, but mainly SADC forces. So now that we are hearing SADC coming, I will continue to insist that the Congolese government, led by Tshisekedi right now, is trying to fund this public diplomacy. Now, how are they going to engage with the region? They chose EAC over SADC. Today, they are coming back to SADC to see if SADC can come to the rescue. But we must resolve the political problem of holding Rwanda and Uganda accountable. If not, we'll continue to have this cycle of violence, where today we are talking about M23, tomorrow we will talk about another rebel force until we hold our neighbors accountable.
Thank you very much, Kambale, for giving us that background. Now, Patrick, Kambale says, and you know, that the problems cannot be solved militarily, that this is a political problem. Now, let's look at how President Tshisekedi has acted in the last few years. You know, Kambale talked about the pulse on the ground. The ordinary Congolese people are not happy with the presence of MONUSCO. They haven't brought peace with the this expensive mission. The EAC troops too. Not a lot of Congolese people are happy. So if I was president, I would feel the pulse on the ground that, look, my people are not happy with this foreign intervention and it's not bringing about any peace. So do you think that President Tshisekedi is acting independent of the Congolese parliament and the Congolese people by inviting SADC troops into the DRC?
He is the head of state of the country. I'm guessing that there are certain powers accorded to him that that he may use, you know, from time to time. And I think right now he's the head of the Southern African Development Community, he's the chairperson, and you can see how of recent, you know, he has moved diplomatically in the region, you know, whether in Southern African Development Community staff or in the African Union. One example is probably his growing, you know, as the Congolese government once said, a diplomatic win for the Congo when the new African Center for Disease Control director was Dr. Kasaya was voted in, you know. So I think with all these, you know, powers that he has been given as the head of state of the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as the chair of the SADC for his cycle, he has much influence to influence the member states, you know, in SADC to say, look, I need this help, I need you guys to intervene, you know.
So who finances these operations? Who's going to pay for the deployment of SADC troops to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo?
It's the Southern African Development Community itself. It's SADC, you know. And I agree with Kambale that, look, these issues are political. They do not. I don't think military intervention will continue to solve the issues in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This needs, you know, talk, you know, negotiations to sit down, you know, political solutions to these issues. You will continue to deploy the soldiers. They will continue to have conflict, you know, and you know, right now, look, we are seated here with a SADC intervention force. We are here with MONUSCO. We are here with the East African community forces. And people are asking, how are they going to harmonize each other? Because SADC ends up saying, look, we are going to deploy forces, but you, the Congolese government, go develop a harmonization strategy that will allow us to come inside. You know, and I don't think that the government will be able to draw that harmonization strategy because it will cause tensions between regions, between the EAC, the SADC, it will cause also tensions with MONUSCO that has been there. I mean, MONUSCO is, as you have said, is the largest and one of the most expensive peacekeeping operations. It has failed absolutely, and we need to be frank about that. And if the people are unhappy, it shows that it's, you know, if the people on the ground are unhappy, it means that yes, indeed, it has failed. It is not without controversy. We have seen how UN peacekeeping forces have been also involved in sexual abuses and so on and so forth. you know, and these are things that
Okay.
you know, have been brought to light. And unfortunately, we have to be frank that yes, if the largest peacekeeping force and one of the most expensive has failed, what about a region of 15, a regional bloc of 15 countries, you know, that is going to send probably, I don't know how many, 1.5
How much
to
difference?
forces?
How much difference would they make? Thank you very much, Patrick. Now to Nixon Katembo, what's the current status, security status in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, especially with concerns to the M23 rebels in the Eastern DRC? What territories have they recently gained control of? And has there been any recent fighting? And what's the human rights situation there as we speak, the humanitarian situation?
Well, the current situation is the fact that M23 have gone silent on the battlefield. However, they continue to causing mayhem. Just about a few days ago, there was an attack on a camp of displaced people, and more than 140 people died in that particular attack. And we know for the fact that in as much as they said that they are withdrawing, but reports that we get from the grounds that they just remove military uniforms and continue mingling around within civilians, but also carrying out guerrilla tactics type of operations against civilians and those who seems to have not supported their cause in the region. As for the humanitarian situation, is very dire. A lot of more than 800,000 people have been displaced by this war. A lot of them are dying of hunger because they have been uprooted from their areas of fields of where they cultivate normal food and to goes on about their daily activities, and that is a challenge. However, I would like to quickly to mention, so with regard to SADC forces coming to the DRC, I think there have been a precedent on, as Kambale mentioned, and it's within this hope that perhaps SADC troops can do perhaps a much needed patchwork that in as much as they intervened in the 2013 war. And I guess that is the idea behind which the Congolese government is trying to tilt towards a SADC instead of the But the problem also have been in the political issues. My colleague mentioned earlier that you see President Tshisekedi seems to be not having a strategic framework or diplomatic framework within which to operate as to salvage the situation in Eastern DRC and the country as a whole. The Congo need, in as much we talk about political reforms and the political solving the political question of the country, but also one have to look at the institutional framework within the country, the decision of the state, including such as the army, much talked about security sector reform, building a national Republican army that can be able to protect the civilian themselves. And I think much of the effort has not been directed. Instead of investing all these forces that are coming in from other countries, in other words, outsourcing the security of the country to foreign nations. One would have expected that the president will look at the issues of building a national army that will defend the country.
And also sovereignty.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So
go ahead and complete your thoughts. Yes.
So basically, that's the challenge for the Congo: lack of strategic leadership at a political level, which then cascade into the rest of the country and the failing of the institutions.
Thank you very much, Nixon. A fine place to go on a break. If you're just joining us, this is Secure the Continent. We're discussing the deployment of the Southern African Development Community forces to the Eastern DRC to help quell the situation, the security situation there. When we return from this break, we'll be looking at solutions and also the consequences of not doing something about the issues, the security issues in the Eastern DRC. To stay with us, this is Secure the Continent. We'll be right back after this quick timeout. Welcome back to Secure the Continent and News Central Television, and we've been discussing the proposed deployment of SADC troops to Eastern DRC. Is it a good thing for the security situation in that region of the DRC? And I still have here with me my esteemed panelist, Patrick Kadima, legal analyst, joins from South Africa, and also Nixon Katembo, who is an analyst of the Great Lakes and East Africa, joining from Johannesburg, South Africa. Also have Kambale Musavuli, analyst, the Center for Research on Congo, Kinshasa. Thanks for staying with me, gentlemen. Interesting discussion so far. Now let's look at ways to, move forward and make some progress in the Eastern DRC. Now, Kambale, the DRC accuses Rwanda of backing M23 rebels who have displaced over 500,000 people in their long campaign. Independent UN experts, the United States, as well as several other Western states, agree with the assessment, although Rwanda denies it. So we have these facts on the ground. Now, why are there no consequences for Rwanda?
It's quite fascinating, right? When we look at even the countries actually agreeing with the facts on the ground. And you will ask yourself, where are African countries? What is the African Union doing as it relates to the situation in the DRC? And the lack of action by African countries, the lack of actions by the African Union as a continental body is worrisome. It sends a message to the Congolese people that the situation in the Congo is not a priority for Africa. And if you consider that this month, on the 25th of May, it will be the 70th anniversary of the African Union. How are we going to achieve Pan-Africanism if we don't resolve the situation in the DRC? The other thing that is also important to look at, right, when we're thinking about solutions, is to really comprehend why over 6 million Congolese people have died. The Congolese people living on a land the size of Western Europe, blessed by so many mineral resources. The gold, the diamond, the copper, the coltan that's in your phone, the cobalt, and so on. The Congo is so essential for the transformation of the African continent. Kwame Nkrumah knew that already in the 60s, and he created the African Union, right, the United States of Africa, with its capital in Kinshasa, right? That was the vision. This country, for the past 2 decades, has not been able to be stable. And we wonder why we have load shedding in South Africa, load shedding in many African countries, when the Congo River can provide electricity to the African continent. Then we have a small country such as Rwanda that is destabilizing the Congo. It's sounding like a broken record, right? So what does that actually mean? North Kivu has about 6 to 7 million people living in the Kivus. And the Kivu region is the size of Denmark. They want us to believe that the M23 rebel group, about 1,000 of them, with some weapons, can attack a region the size of a country called Denmark, with their military power, and no one holds them accountable. So we believe that for peace to be in the Congo, right, we believe that Africans have to wake up. I was very happy when I saw Paul Kagame of Rwanda traveling to Benin. And when he was in Benin, a journalist in Benin asked him about the Congo. Why was Paul Kagame in Benin? He's serving French interests. In West Africa, there is already a wave where people in West Africa are asking France to leave. In Mali, they've been asked to leave. In Burkina Faso, the same thing. Now we're looking at Guinea-Conakry and what's going to unfold there as well. So going to Benin is to actually settle with French interests in the region. Macron cannot go to West Africa. So Macron sent his best friend, Paul Kagame, to go there. But while he was there, a journalist asked Paul Kagame about the Congo. And what Paul Kagame said in Benin should worry many Africans. Every single African should be worried. Instead, didn't talk about the M23, he talked about the Congo conflict. He says that the Congo conflict gets its roots at the Berlin Conference, that some of the territories of the DRC is part of Rwanda. Not to dispute and go into showing the fact, because of course what he said is not true, right? It can be proven. There are enough information out there. But let me put the question differently. What if today Togo decides to take a part of Ghana and saying that in 1885 at the Berlin Conference, what was carved is not correct, so we need to get our territory back. And let's think about it for every single country. This issue has already been resolved at the African Union, where we say that with the African Charter, that the territorial integrity of African nation is important and cannot be questioned. That the borders of today is what's there, and there is a mechanism for self-determination of the people for a new land to be created. So that is not even a question. So that already unfolded. We should already tell people that the conflict in the Congo is not about the M23. We can speak for hours and hours about the M23 when Paul Kagame finally has told the world that the situation in the Congo, the conflict in the Congo, is about the land. It's about the resources. And those who want to get access to the land will have a narrative. How do we hold Paul Kagame accountable when I'm saying it's a political problem? It's very simple. The Congolese people support the recommendation of the UN Mapping Exercise Report, published in 2010, October 1st, 2010. A report that documented 617 incidents, crimes, the most egregious crimes committed in the DRC, and say that what's happening in the Congo are war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possible genocide. And one of the recommendations that the Congolese people are calling for is the creation of an international tribunal for the Congo. That tribunal is so essential for peace and stability in Congo. Why? Without justice, there cannot be peace. Having a tribunal will expose the crimes, will bring about justice, and hold those accountable, presenting it to the world. So if we don't have a tribunal, if we're not holding perpetrators of violence accountable, it creates a cycle, a vicious cycle, saying that it's okay to kill people in the Congo. It's okay to steal minerals. Without justice, there will never be peace and stability in DRC. That is what's needed for peace and stability. Justice through an international tribunal for Congo.
Thank you very much, Kambale. Now, Patrick, Kambale says without justice, there can never be peace in the DRC. Now, gets into justice and peace. How do we get there? Are there, because you believe that, you can't solve this problem militarily. So now, are there any ongoing efforts to resume peace negotiations between the M23 rebels and the government of the DRC? And if so, what are the key issues that need to be addressed in order to reach a lasting settlement?
It's a very difficult one, the issues in the Democratic Republic of Congo, I must say, and I think since I've argued that military intervention has already failed, I think this needs a collective effort from the African Union, and all the other regional blocs that the Democratic Republic of Congo is part of. It will also need, concerted effort from the United Nations, political will from, all the parties involved to sit down and, find a lasting solution to the problem that is happening. At this moment, the issues, the direction that the regional blocs are taking, the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community, assists no one. People are dying each and every day, and ultimately the peacekeeping operations that are there, are just a waste of money. So, but again, it will need also probably a tribunal being set up after, during the political settlement or political talks, negotiations, a tribunal that is set up to try people that have been terrorizing the citizens in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. It will warrant that the International Criminal Court as well comes to the party to make sure that those who have been
Found guilty of crimes against humanity.
have been found to be participating in these activities, these criminal activities should be tried in front of a competent international body.
Thank you very much. Patrick, now back to you, Kambale. Elections are slated for sometime this year in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What's the political atmosphere in the DRC like, and is there any connection to what is happening in the Eastern DRC? And if you have a region of 7 million people and there's no peace there, I don't think any elections will be holding under those conditions. So how does the political situation and temperature in the DRC factor into all of this discussion? Yeah. Yes, Kambale, did you get my question? Can you unmute your device?
Sorry, to hear your question. Sorry.
Okay, I said how elections are slated for sometime this year in the DRC, and there's no way where you can have elections in a region of 7 million people where there's no peace and stability. What's the political temperature like in the DRC, and how does it factor into the security situation that we are witnessing in the Eastern DRC?
You're asking me very tough questions. Logically, with the reality on the ground, it does not make sense to have an election in December. Logistically, financially, structurally, the Congolese government has done everything to show that they will not be organizing election. There have been discussions in the DRC parliament of introducing a bill that will change the term limit from 5 to 7. If that bill is introduced and it's actually passed in the parliament, that will already extend the election to be 2 years from now. For many different politicians and some of our contacts on the ground, they've shared with us that the situation shows that there is an intent to extend it by 2 years. With war, Kabila showed us even with war, there can be an election. Even though he extended it also himself from 2016 to 2018, that they still organize election. If there is a will, there is a way. The question is bigger than the election. Now, what is the current reality of the Congolese people right now? We just lost over 400 people in Calais due to heavy rains as homes were destroyed.
Yes.
And the lives were lost. We've lost people in regions just right outside of Kinshasa. Where in parliament they keep saying that there is a dark hand into the killings, and the killing is not taking place. If we move up north in the Ituri province, more people are being killed, right? So the instability is existent. My fear is to use that excuse to not organize election on time and to also disenfranchise Congolese electors. This is actually what happened at the last election. At the last election in 2018, the Butembo, Beni, the town of Yumbi, they were not able to participate in the election due to, for those in the east, in the town of Beni and so on, they said the reason why they didn't participate is because of the Ebola outbreak. And in the town of Yumbi is because of the violence that existed. And Yumbi is in the west of the Congo. So millions of electors were disenfranchised. And they could do the same also now. The people of the Congo want to choose their leader. even if the leader does not match international standard, even if that leader is inadequate, the Congolese people want to choose their leader. And they have not been able to do that since the assassination of Patrice Lumumba in 1960. And that's been the struggle of the Congolese. From 1885 to present, the Congolese people have not been able to determine their affairs. In 2018, we were so close to be in a point where the Congolese people chose their leader. Unfortunately, Western nations, in cahoots with some African countries, according to Africa Confidential, they wrote an article showing that there was a secret deal between Felix Tshisekedi and Joseph Kabila in front of representatives of South Africa, Kenya, and Egypt to make sure that whoever is the president, which was Felix signing that agreement, they will not go after Kabila, arresting him or his assets. That decision to ignore the will of the people in saying we are going to favor stability over democracy, this is why today we are wondering how come the president of the Congo is not able to stop the conflict and have the Congolese people behind him?
Yes.
It's because he lacks legitimacy and he lacks strategy to do that. So for this upcoming election, what's critical for anyone watching it is to make sure, even if the election is not going to take place, that we follow the voice and the will of the Congolese people who are going to be in the street demanding that there are elections and that we support them in their aspiration to choose their leaders.
Thank you very much, Kambale. Quite very deep and interesting conversation on the situation in the DRC. We do hope that peace returns soon. I'd like to say a big thank you to all our analysts in today's program. Patrick Kadima, legal analyst, joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa, and also Nixon Katembo, an analyst of the Great Lakes and East Africa region, who also joined from Johannesburg, South Africa. And to you, many thanks to you, Kambale Musavuli, the analyst for Center for Research on Congo, Kinshasa, joining all the way from Beijing in China. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you on this very important issue. Thank you for your insights and contribution.
Thank you always.
Now, achieving lasting peace in the Eastern DRC requires a multifaceted approach that addresses the root causes of the conflict, including resource exploitation, corruption, and impunity for human rights abuses. This involves improving the management of natural resources, promoting good governance, holding perpetrators of violence accountable, and promoting reconciliation between different communities. International support is also necessary to build the capacity of the government and civil society organizations to promote peace and human rights. Thank you very much for being a part of the program. Remember to stay safe all the time. See you next week on Secure the Continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa. Bye-bye.